Every day, without realizing it, you are being seduced. Not always sexually, not always romantically, but psychologically. Someone is shaping what you want. Someone is influencing what you feel. Someone is guiding your decisions while you believe you are acting freely. And the most dangerous part is this: you enjoy it. Seduction does not announce itself. It does not knock on the door and ask permission. It slips in quietly, through curiosity, through emotion, through moments that feel accidental. A conversation that lingers longer than it should. A person whose presence feels charged for reasons you can't explain. A voice, a look, a silence that stays with you after they're gone. That is seduction at work. Most people believe seduction is about beauty, charm, or confidence. That belief is comforting and wrong. True seduction operates beneath the surface in the subconscious, where logic loses its authority. It works through symbols, emotions, absence, tension, and imagination. It bypasses reason and speaks directly to desire. This book is about that hidden process. It is about how attraction is engineered, how influence grows invisibly, how people are drawn in, emotionally invested, and ultimately surrendered, often without force, threats, or even awareness. Throughout history, seduction has shaped empires, destroyed reputations, redirected wars, and rewritten destinies. Kings abandoned kingdoms, generals forgot duty, brilliant minds lost clarity, not because they were weak, but because they were human. And humanity has a flaw. We crave meaning. We crave emotion. We crave escape from the ordinary. Seduction feeds those cravings perfectly. This is not a book of pickup lines or superficial tricks. It is not about manipulation in the crude sense. It is about understanding the architecture of desire, the structure beneath attraction, obsession, loyalty, and influence. It is about seeing clearly what most people feel but cannot name. You will learn why. Curiosity is more powerful than beauty. Mystery outperforms honesty. Absence creates obsession. Emotion overrides morality. And why people often choose the illusion over the truth. You will also confront an uncomfortable reality. Seduction is amoral. It does not care about fairness. It does not reward virtue. It does not protect the innocent. It simply works. Those who understand it gain power. Those who don't are controlled by those who do. As you move through this book, you will begin to recognize patterns in others and in yourself. You will see why certain people dominate attention effortlessly, why some leave lasting emotional impact while others are forgotten, why you've been drawn to people who were bad for you, and why you may have unknowingly done the same to others. This knowledge is dangerous, not because it corrupts, but because it reveals. Once you see the strings, you can no longer pretend they don't exist. You will face a choice: to remain unaware and continue being influenced by forces you don't understand, or to learn how desire works so you can recognize it, defend against it, or wield it consciously. This book does not tell you what to do with that power. It only shows you that it exists. The rest is up to you. Welcome to the invisible war. Power rarely announces itself with violence. It doesn't always wear a uniform, raise its voice, or issue commands. The most effective power moves quietly through emotion, suggestion, and desire. Seduction is that form of power. It is influence without force, control without confrontation, domination without resistance. This section lays the philosophical foundation of the entire book. Before techniques, archetypes, or strategies, you must understand why seduction works, why it outperforms coercion, and why human beings are almost designed to surrender to it. 1. Seduction versus force. Why the subtle always wins. Force creates enemies. Seduction creates believers. History shows this pattern repeatedly. Rulers who relied on fear had to constantly reinforce it. The moment their grip weakened, rebellion followed. But those who ruled through fascination, charisma, and emotional loyalty were obeyed willingly, even passionately. Force attacks the body. Seduction infiltrates the mind. When someone is forced, they comply outwardly but resist inwardly. Their ego remains intact, waiting for revenge. Seduction works differently. It makes the target feel like they chose the outcome. Their ego is not crushed, it is recruited. This is why seduction is more durable than violence. People defend what they believe they chose. 2. Desire as the ultimate motivator. Human beings are not driven by logic. They are driven by desire, wearing the mask of logic. We tell ourselves stories to justify what we already want. Desire precedes reason, not the other way around. Seduction understands this and exploits it. Money motivates until comfort is reached. Fear motivates until safety is secured. But desire has no natural stopping point. Desire wants more. More intensity. More meaning. More emotion. More escape. This is why seduction scales infinitely. It can motivate sacrifice, loyalty, obsession, even self-destruction. 3. Why people want to be controlled. This is the uncomfortable truth most people refuse to admit. Freedom is exhausting. Choosing constantly drains energy. Responsibility creates anxiety. Uncertainty breeds fear. Seduction offers relief. It simplifies the world. It gives people something or someone to orbit. When seduced, people feel relieved from decision-making, validated in their emotions, protected from boredom, lifted above ordinary life. Seduction does not enslave unwilling victims. It attracts people already tired of being fully autonomous. 4. The seduction illusion, choice versus influence. The greatest illusion seduction creates is the illusion of agency. The target feels, I'm in control. This is my decision. I'm choosing this person/idea/path. In reality, the environment, emotions, timing, and symbols have been carefully arranged. This is the highest form of power, to guide behavior without triggering resistance. When people believe they are free, they stop defending themselves. 5. Moral neutrality of power. Seduction itself is neither good nor evil. It has been used to inspire movements, manipulate nations, create art, destroy lives, build empires, exploit weakness. Condemning seduction as immoral does not stop it from operating. Ignoring it only guarantees vulnerability. As explored in works like The Art of Seduction, power dynamics exist whether we acknowledge them or not. Refusing to understand them is not virtue, it is naivety. This book does not moralize seduction. It reveals it. What you do with that knowledge determines the ethics, not the knowledge itself. 6. The quiet advantage of the seducer. The seducer does not rush. They do not argue. They do not beg. They observe. They understand that people reveal their weaknesses voluntarily. Emotions leak through words and behavior. Insecurity is louder than confidence. While others speak, the seducer listens. While others react, the seducer plans. This asymmetry creates power. Closing of Section I. Seduction is power because it aligns with human nature instead of fighting it. It does not demand obedience. It invites participation. It does not break the will. It reshapes desire. And once desire is reshaped, behavior follows naturally. Now that you understand why seduction is power, the next sections will explore how it operates, how it grows, and how it consumes, step by step, layer by layer. The architecture is already there. You're about to see it. Section II. Human nature exposed. Seduction works because it does not fight human nature. It accepts it. Most systems, education, morality, religion, social rules, are built on the fantasy of how humans should behave. Seduction is built on how humans actually behave when they feel unseen, bored, insecure, or emotionally hungry. This section strips away comforting illusions and examines the psychological mechanisms that make seduction inevitable. 7. The brain on desire. The human brain did not evolve for truth. It evolved for survival and stimulation. Desire activates the most primitive regions of the mind, the same areas responsible for reward, anticipation, and emotional memory. Once activated, these systems suppress critical thinking. Logic becomes slow. Emotion becomes fast. This is why people do irrational things when seduced. Abandon long-term plans. Ignore obvious warning signs. Justify behavior they once condemned. Seduction hijacks attention and reroutes it toward anticipation. The brain becomes less interested in outcomes and more addicted to the process. Desire doesn't want answers. It wants continuation. 8. Curiosity, the gateway emotion. Curiosity is the most underestimated emotional trigger. Fear makes people defensive. Pleasure makes them relaxed. But curiosity makes them lean forward. The moment someone thinks, "What does this mean? Why did they say that? What are they really like?" they are already engaged. Seduction begins not with attraction but with incompleteness, a gap in information, a contradiction, a silence where an answer should be. The human mind hates open loops. It seeks closure, even at its own expense. 9. Vanity, insecurity, and the need to be seen. Every human being carries a private insecurity. Some hide it behind arrogance, others behind politeness, some behind success, others behind detachment. Seduction succeeds by speaking directly to this insecurity without numbing it. When someone feels deeply seen, uniquely understood, subtly validated, they experience relief. That relief feels like attraction. Flattery alone is weak. Anyone can flatter. Recognition is powerful. The seducer notices what others overlook and reflects it back. 10. Fear of boredom, the hidden engine of attraction. Boredom is not trivial, it is existential. Routine slowly convinces people that life is shrinking, that their best moments are behind them, that nothing new will happen. Seduction represents interruption. It breaks the loop, it distorts time, it makes moments feel charged again. This is why seduction is strongest during transitions, crises, emotional plateaus, periods of stagnation. The seducer doesn't create desire from nothing. They awaken what boredom has buried. 11. Why resistance strengthens seduction. Resistance feels like control, but it often feeds the very thing it opposes. When someone resists seduction, they think about it more. When they deny desire, it gains symbolic power. When they say no, imagination says what if. This is why seduction thrives on delay, uncertainty, mixed signals, emotional tension. Total availability kills desire. Total rejection can intensify it. The mind romanticizes what it cannot resolve. 12. Emotional memory versus logical memory. Logic fades quickly. Emotion lingers. You may forget what someone said, but you will remember how they made you feel, the mood of the moment, the atmosphere around them. Seduction prioritizes emotional memory over factual truth. It plants feelings instead of arguments. Years later, people don't remember why they trusted someone, only that it felt right. 13. The human hunger for meaning. Humans don't just want pleasure. They want meaning. Seduction becomes irresistible when it frames desire as something larger. Fate, timing, destiny, transformation. When attraction feels meaningful, people protect it. They invest identity into it. Walking away would mean admitting the meaning was imagined, and that is too painful. So they stay. Closing of section II. Seduction is not a trick imposed from the outside. It is a mirror held up to the inside. It works because humans crave stimulation, fear emptiness, seek validation, romanticize uncertainty, and confuse emotion with truth. Once you understand these traits, seduction no longer seems mysterious. It becomes mechanical, predictable, almost inevitable. In the next section, we move from nature to process. You will see how seduction unfolds step by step. From the first spark of curiosity to emotional surrender, the machinery is already turning. Section III. The seducer's mindset. Seduction does not begin with action. It begins with perception. Before techniques, before words, before presence, there is a way of seeing the world that separates seducers from everyone else. Most people move through interactions trapped inside their own thoughts, needs, and insecurities. The seducer moves outward, into observation, calibration, and quiet control. This section is about that internal shift. 14. Seeing people as emotional landscapes. Every person carries a hidden emotional terrain. There are peaks, pride, confidence, ambition. There are valleys, shame, loneliness, fear. There are fault lines, unresolved conflicts, unmet desires, private fantasies. Most interactions skim the surface. Seducers map the terrain. They listen for recurring complaints, emotional spikes, sudden defensiveness, nostalgia, idealization. These are signals. They reveal where attention lingers and where control can be applied. Seduction is not persuasion. It is alignment with emotional gravity. 15. Attention as a weapon. Attention is the rarest currency in the modern world. Everyone wants it. Few know how to give it properly. The seducer gives attention selectively and intensely, not constantly, not indiscriminately. When attention feels earned rather than automatic, it becomes valuable. When someone senses they must maintain your interest, power subtly shifts. Withdrawn attention creates uncertainty. Focused attention creates attachment. Mastery lies in controlling both. 16. The observer's advantage. Those who speak the most reveal the most. Seducers understand this asymmetry. They allow others to talk, explain, confess, justify. Every word becomes data. While others rush to impress, the seducer gathers information. This creates a structural advantage. You know more than they do. You react less. You plan ahead. Silence is not emptiness. It is leverage. 17. Emotional detachment and strategic empathy. Seduction requires empathy, but not entanglement. The seducer feels with people without being pulled by them. This distance allows clarity. Too much emotional involvement leads to impulsive decisions, loss of timing, overexposure, neediness. Strategic empathy means understanding emotions without surrendering to them. Care deeply. Act calmly. 18. Patience as a form of dominance. Impatience reveals hunger. Hunger reveals weakness. Seduction unfolds over time. Those who rush attempt to extract rather than cultivate. The seducer delays gratification, not as denial but as design. Anticipation multiplies desire. Waiting creates investment. Whoever is willing to wait longer controls the pace, and therefore the outcome. 19. Never push. The power of indirect approach. Direct pressure activates resistance. Human egos defend autonomy fiercely. The moment someone feels pushed, they push back or retreat. Seducers move sideways. They suggest rather than insist, hint rather than declare, invite rather than demand. When people feel they are discovering something on their own, they protect it more fiercely. 20. Making the other choose you. The ultimate goal of seduction is not conquest, it is self-persuasion. When the target believes, "This was my idea. I chose this. I pursued them," the seduction is complete. This is why overt pursuit is often counterproductive. The seducer creates conditions where desire emerges naturally. They step back just enough for the other to step forward. 21. The seducer's code. Every form of power operates by rules, even when unspoken. The seducer's code is simple. Observe more than you act. Reveal less than you know. Control rhythm, not outcomes. Never appear desperate. Always leave room for imagination. Break these rules and seduction collapses into manipulation, or worse, neediness. Closing of section III. Seduction is not about being someone else. It is about seeing differently. When you stop trying to impress and start understanding, control emerges naturally. When you release urgency, influence grows. When you master your own emotions, you gain access to others. With this mindset in place, the next section will reveal the mechanics of seduction itself, the phases, the transitions, and the psychological traps that turn curiosity into obsession. The game does not begin when you act. It begins when you observe. Section IV. The seductive process. How desire is engineered step by step. Seduction does not happen in a single moment. It unfolds in phases, each with its own psychology, risks, and rules. Most people fail because they act too early, move too fast, or mistake temporary attraction for lasting influence. The skilled seducer understands sequence. Desire must be constructed, not forced. This section breaks seduction into its core stages, showing how curiosity becomes emotion, emotion becomes obsession, and obsession ends in surrender. 22. Phase I. Awakening curiosity. Curiosity is the spark that ignites everything. At this stage, attraction is not yet personal, it is cognitive. The mind notices a disruption in its normal pattern. Something feels unusual, unresolved, or contradictory. Curiosity is created through mystery, contrast, silence, unpredictability, incomplete information. The goal is not to impress. It is to interrupt. When someone thinks about you after you're gone, the seduction has already begun. 23. The power of first impressions and why they're misunderstood. First impressions are not about perfection. They are about memorability. People remember emotional tone, confidence or ease, presence or absence of tension. Trying too hard signals insecurity. Neutral confidence signals strength. A seducer leaves an emotional residue rather than a polished image. 24. Phase II. Emotional investment. Curiosity alone fades quickly. Emotion anchors attention. This phase begins when interactions stop being casual and start feeling personally significant. Emotional investment grows through shared experiences, inside jokes, private conversations, vulnerability, controlled, not dumped. The key is reciprocity. Each emotional step forward must feel mutual. Once emotions are involved, logic begins to weaken. 25. Creating emotional peaks. Emotion strengthens through intensity. Flat interactions don't bond people, moments do. Moments that feel charged, risky, or meaningful. This can include emotional revelations, adventures, humor mixed with tension, symbolic gestures. These peaks become reference points. The mind returns to them, replaying and amplifying their impact. 26. Phase III, obsession and dependency. This is the most dangerous phase for both sides. Obsession forms when anticipation outweighs satisfaction. Absence intensifies desire. The seducer becomes emotionally symbolic. The person is no longer reacting to reality, but to imagination. They think, why do I care this much? What does this mean? I can't stop thinking about them. This is where power consolidates. 27. The role of absence and delay. Presence builds familiarity. Absence builds desire. Strategic withdrawal allows imagination to take over, creates emotional imbalance, increases perceived value. Total availability flattens emotion. Intermittent presence sharpens it. The rhythm, closeness, distance, return is what creates addiction. 28. Phase IV, surrender. Surrender is not defeat. It feels like relief. At this stage, the target stops resisting emotionally. They accept the dynamic because resisting has become more painful than yielding. Surrender occurs when emotional investment feels irreversible. Identity becomes linked to the connection. Uncertainty resolves into attachment. This is when people say, I don't care anymore. I trust you. I've never felt this way before. The seduction is complete. 29. Why most seductions fail. Most seductions collapse due to rushing phases, overexposure, emotional dumping, lack of rhythm, fear of losing control. Impatience kills tension. Transparency kills mystery. Neediness kills power. Seduction is fragile. One misstep can reset everything. 30. The seducer's discipline. The hardest part of seduction is not technique, it is restraint. Knowing when to advance, pause, withdraw, reappear requires emotional control and long-term thinking. Those who master this discipline dominate the process without appearing to dominate at all. Closing of section IV. Seduction is not chaos. It is structure disguised as spontaneity. Each phase prepares the next. Skip one and the entire structure weakens. Now that you understand the process, the next section will explore the environment, how setting, atmosphere, and context amplify desire beyond what words alone can achieve. Seduction does not exist in a vacuum. It needs a stage. Section V. The language of influence. How words bypass logic and reshape desire. Words are not neutral. They are triggers, symbols, and signals. Used one way, they inform. Used another, they influence. Seduction depends not on what is said, but on how language shapes emotion, meaning, and imagination. This section reveals why certain phrases linger, why some conversations feel charged long after they end, and how language quietly bends perception. 31. Words that bypass logic. Most people use language to explain. Seducers use language to evoke. Logical language appeals to the conscious mind. Emotional language slips past it. Compare. I like spending time with you. Something about the way this feels is different. The second creates ambiguity. Ambiguity invites interpretation. Interpretation creates emotional involvement. When logic sleeps, influence works. 32. Symbolic language and myth. Humans think in symbols, not facts. This is why myths survive centuries. Slogans move crowds. Poetry feels truer than data. Seductive language uses metaphor, timing, and implication. It frames experiences as part of a larger story. Words like fate, Timing, inevitable, meant to be. Do not prove anything. They suggest meaning, and meaning is addictive. 33. Timing, silence, and subtext. What you don't say often matters more than what you do. A pause after a sentence invites anticipation. A delayed response amplifies significance. An unfinished thought allows imagination to complete it. Silence creates space. Space invites projection. Subtext is where seduction lies. It is the emotional undercurrent beneath the surface of words. 34. Storytelling as psychological entrapment. Stories are emotional containers. When someone listens to a story, their defenses lower. They stop evaluating and start experiencing. Effective seductive stories mirror the listener's desires. Hint at transformation. Frame the speaker as a guide or catalyst. The listener unconsciously inserts themselves into the narrative. They are no longer hearing about desire. They are imagining themselves inside it. 35. Framing reality through language. Language shapes perception. Call something dangerous right arrow, it excites. Forbidden right arrow, it intensifies. Rare right arrow, it gains value. Temporary right arrow, it feels urgent. Seducers frame interactions so that emotions feel justified and inevitable. People rarely question feelings that come with a compelling explanation. 36. Creating emotional identity through words. Repeated phrases and inside language create psychological ownership. Shared jokes, nicknames, references, and private meanings form an internal world separate from everyone else. Once that world exists, leaving it feels like loss. This is not manipulation, it is emotional construction. 37. The hypnotic effect of certainty. Hesitation weakens language. Certainty strengthens it. Seducers speak without over-explaining. They state rather than ask. They imply direction rather than seek approval. Certainty creates safety. Safety creates trust. Trust deepens influence. When someone speaks as if things are already aligned, others adjust to that reality. 38. When language becomes memory. The most seductive phrases are remembered not for their wording, but for their timing. A simple sentence spoken at the right emotional moment can anchor itself permanently. Years later, the exact words may be forgotten, but the feeling returns instantly. That is language at its highest power. Closing of Section V. Words do not seduce on their own. They activate emotion already waiting beneath the surface. When language hints rather than explains, evokes rather than argues, frames rather than declares, it becomes influence. In the next section, we move beyond language into emotion itself, how feelings are orchestrated, intensified, and made unforgettable. Words open the door. Emotion pulls them through it. Section VI. Emotional orchestration. How feelings are engineered, intensified, and made unforgettable. Seduction does not live in words. Words are only the trigger. The real work happens in emotion. People forget facts. They forget promises. They forget logic. But they never forget how someone made them feel. This section reveals how seducers design emotional experiences, not random moods, but carefully shaped emotional journeys that bind memory, desire, and identity together. 39. Emotion is the true currency of power. Influence is not built on agreement. It is built on emotional association. When someone associates you with excitement, relief, intensity, meaning, escape, you gain leverage without demanding it. They seek you out not because they decide to, but because their emotional system pulls them toward you automatically. 40. Creating emotional contrast. Flat emotions are forgettable. Contrast is unforgettable. Seduction thrives on emotional variation. Calm followed by intensity. Humor followed by seriousness. Closeness followed by distance. This contrast keeps the nervous system alert. It prevents emotional adaptation. Consistency feels safe. Variation feels alive. 41. Emotional peaks and memory anchors. The brain remembers peaks, not averages. A single emotionally charged moment can outweigh dozens of neutral ones. Seducers deliberately create peaks through risk, surprise, vulnerability, shared adrenaline, symbolic gestures. These moments become anchors. The mind revisits them, strengthening attachment each time. 42. The role of emotional chaos. Perfect emotional stability is comforting, but boring. Seduction introduces controlled instability, just enough unpredictability to create tension, but not enough to cause withdrawal. This tension heightens awareness, intensifies desire, makes resolution feel euphoric. The emotional storm becomes addictive. 43. Shared secrets and private worlds. Nothing bonds people faster than secrecy. Shared secrets create an us versus the world dynamic. They shrink reality until only two people matter. Once a private world exists, outsiders feel irrelevant. Criticism feels like threat. Separation feels like exile. This is one of the strongest emotional binds available. 44. Turning experiences into meaning. Experiences alone fade. Meaning makes them permanent. Seducers subtly frame experiences as rare, symbolic, transformative, once in a lifetime. When someone believes a moment meant something, they protect it, and whoever represents it. 45. Anticipation versus satisfaction. Satisfaction ends desire. Anticipation sustains it. Seducers delay emotional payoff, not by withholding completely, but by offering fragments. Each fragment promises more. The mind becomes future-focused, constantly projecting the next moment. 46. Emotional dependency versus emotional resonance. There is a line between resonance and dependency. Resonance energizes, expands, inspires. Dependency narrows, weakens, consumes. The dangerous seducer walks this line deliberately. The wise seducer understands its cost. Power increases as dependency grows, but so does instability. 47. When pleasure becomes identity. The deepest seduction occurs when emotion merges with identity. When someone thinks, "This is who I am with you. I feel most alive like this," they are no longer just attracted. They are invested. Leaving would mean losing a version of themselves. Closing of section VI. Seduction is emotional architecture. Each feeling is placed deliberately. Each moment builds upon the last. Each memory strengthens the structure. By the time people realize they are deeply involved, the emotions already belong to you. Next, we move beyond internal emotion into external reality. The environments, atmospheres, and settings that quietly amplify desire. Emotion is powerful, but emotion, combined with the right stage, is irresistible. Section VII. Setting the stage. How environment shapes desire and weakens resistance. Seduction does not exist only between two people. It exists in space. The environment is not a backdrop. It is an active participant. Mood, setting, and atmosphere quietly influence perception, behavior, and emotional openness. The skilled seducer understands this and never leaves it to chance. This section reveals how surroundings prepare the mind for desire long before words or actions do. 48. The psychology of place. Different environments trigger different mental states. A bright, crowded cafe encourages logic and distraction. A dim, enclosed space invites introspection and intimacy. A place removed from routine loosens identity. Seduction flourishes where the ordinary dissolves. When people feel they have stepped outside daily life, they become more playful, more open, more suggestible. The mind associates novelty with possibility. 49. Isolation without force. Physical isolation is not required. Psychological isolation is. Seducers create environments where attention narrows. Fewer interruptions. Reduced social surveillance. Shared focus. When the outside world fades, emotional intensity increases. This is why late nights feel intimate. Private spaces feel charged. Journeys create bonds. Isolation accelerates attachment. 50. Sensory triggers and emotional memory. The senses bypass logic entirely. Smell, sound, lighting, texture. These embed directly into emotional memory. Years later, a scent or song can resurrect an entire feeling. Seducers use sensory consistency. A recurring atmosphere. Familiar music. Repeated locations. These become emotional anchors. The environment itself begins to represent the connection. 51. Time distortion and the loss of awareness. One sign of successful seduction is time distortion. When people lose track of time, their analytical mind disengages. They become immersed rather than evaluative. Time distortion is encouraged by deep conversation, emotional peaks, novelty, uninterrupted flow. When time disappears, resistance weakens. 52. Creating a world apart. Seduction is strongest when it feels separate from reality. A world apart does not require luxury, only intentional contrast. Different rules, different rhythms, different expectations. Inside this world, emotions feel amplified. Consequences feel distant. Connection feels special. Leaving the world feels like loss. 53. The power of ritual and repetition. Ritual creates familiarity. Familiarity creates comfort. Comfort invites surrender. Repeated behaviors, meeting styles, phrases, habits create rhythm. Rhythm creates expectation. Expectation creates attachment. Over time, these rituals become emotionally symbolic. Breaking them feels unsettling. Maintaining them feels safe. 54. Social proof and subtle status. Environment also communicates value. Where you are seen, who you are associated with, and how others react to you quietly shape perception. Seduction strengthens when others show interest. Status is implied, not stated. Confidence feels natural. Value is most persuasive when it appears effortless. 55. When the environment seduces for you. The highest form of seduction is indirect. When the environment relaxes defenses, heightens emotion, encourages intimacy. You do not need to push. People attribute their feelings to the moment, the place, the experience, without realizing you designed it. Closing of section VII. Words influence. Emotion binds. But environment opens the door. When setting, timing, and atmosphere align, seduction becomes almost automatic. Resistance fades not because it is attacked, but because it no longer feels necessary. In the next section, we explore one of the most powerful tools of all. Absence, distance, and rhythm, the invisible forces that turn attraction into addiction. The stage is set. Now the movement begins. Section VII. Absence, distance, and rhythm. Why desire grows when you are not there. Presence creates connection. Absence creates obsession. Most people misunderstand this. They believe attraction is built by constant contact, constant reassurance, constant availability. In reality, overexposure dulls desire. What is always present loses psychological value. Seduction depends on rhythm. This section explores how distance, delay, and timing quietly amplify longing and convert attraction into addiction. 56. The power of disappearance. Nothing sharpens desire like absence. When someone disappears at the right moment, the mind rushes to fill the void. Imagination takes control, exaggerating emotion and significance. Absence forces questions. Where are they? Why haven't they reached out? What does this mean? Each question deepens emotional involvement. The seducer understands this. Presence builds familiarity, absence builds meaning. 57. Intermittent reward and psychological addiction. The human brain is wired to respond most strongly to unpredictable rewards. Consistent pleasure becomes routine. Inconsistent pleasure becomes addictive. Seduction mirrors this mechanism. Warmth followed by withdrawal. Attention followed by silence. Intimacy followed by distance. The uncertainty keeps the emotional system engaged. The mind chases resolution. This is not cruelty. It is psychology. 58. Push-pull dynamics. Push-pull is not manipulation when done with restraint. It is emotional packing. Too much closeness overwhelms. Too much distance detaches. The seducer moves between the two, creating tension without rupture. Pull. Attention. Validation. Intimacy. Pushing. Independence. Withdrawal. Unpredictability. This dynamic creates emotional motion, and motion sustains desire. 59. Scarcity and perceived value. Humans value what is scarce. When someone appears selective, busy, independent, their time feels valuable, their attention feels earned. Scarcity signals self-worth. Overavailability signals need. The seducer never competes for attention. They allow attention to come to them. 60. Timing is everything. A perfect message sent at the wrong moment fails. An ordinary gesture delivered at the right moment resonates deeply. Timing amplifies impact. Seducers wait for emotional openness, vulnerability, transition moments, heightened states. Then they act, briefly, decisively, and withdraw again. 61. Letting imagination do the work. The imagination is more powerful than reality. When details are missing, the mind supplies ideal versions. Gaps invite fantasy. Fantasy intensifies emotion. This is why mystery outperforms transparency. Hints outperform declarations. Fragments outperform full disclosure. The seducer leaves space intentionally. 62. When distance becomes control. Distance does not weaken influence, it often strengthens it. When someone adjusts their behavior, mood, or expectations based on your availability, influence has already shifted. They are reacting. You are packing. This asymmetry creates control without confrontation. 63. The risk of overuse. Distance is powerful but dangerous. Too much withdrawal creates insecurity, resentment, or collapse. Seduction requires sensitivity. The goal is tension, not trauma. Desire, not anxiety. A skilled seducer reads emotional feedback and adjusts rhythm accordingly. Closing of section VII. Seduction breathes. Inhale closeness. Exhale distance. When rhythm is mastered, desire sustains itself. You no longer need to push or persuade. The emotional system of the other person does the work for you. Next, we move from mechanics to identity. The seductive archetypes, the roles people naturally fall into, and how different styles of seduction dominate different minds. You now understand the motion. It's time to meet the players. Section IX. The Siren. The seduction of escape and sensory power. The siren is the oldest seductive force in human history. Before laws, before empires, before strategy, there was temptation. The siren represents that temptation in its purest form, the promise of escape from duty, from restraint, from the weight of responsibility. Where others persuade, the siren overwhelms the senses. 64. The psychological core of the siren. The siren seduces by offering a world without consequence. Her power lies not in logic or argument, but in sensation. Pleasure without guilt. Intensity without explanation. Desire without justification. She does not convince you to abandon reason. She makes reason feel irrelevant. The siren is especially powerful over those who feel trapped by obligation, routine, morality, or status. To them, she represents liberation. 65. Escape is the real product. The siren does not sell herself. She sells escape. Escape from responsibility, predictability, self-control, identity. Around the siren, seriousness dissolves. Time loses structure. Life feels lighter, richer, more vivid. This is why the siren often appears during moments of pressure or burnout. She arrives when people are most vulnerable to indulgence. 66. Transformation as seduction. The siren is never static. She shifts. Appearance, tone, mood, rhythm. Just as the target begins to feel familiar, she changes. This constant transformation prevents emotional adaptation. Familiarity breeds comfort. Transformation sustains fascination. The siren understands that mystery must be renewed, not preserved. 67. Sensory dominance. The siren works through the body first, the mind second. Her tools include voice, movement, rhythm, timing, atmosphere. She does not explain herself, she is felt. This sensory dominance bypasses critical thinking. Once the body responds, the mind follows. 68. Illusion over reality. The siren is an illusion by design. She does not reveal her full self because possession kills desire. What can be fully known can be controlled, and the siren must never be controlled. She offers fragments, glimpses, moments, sensations, enough to intoxicate, never enough to satisfy. The target chases not the person, but the feeling. 69. Why the siren is dangerous. The siren's power is destructive, often to both sides. Those under her spell may neglect duty, abandon loyalty, lose perspective, make irreversible choices. The siren herself risks becoming trapped in her performance. When identity becomes illusion, emptiness follows. This is the paradox. The siren must never fully belong to anyone, including herself. 70. The siren's modern form. In the modern world, the siren does not always appear as overt sensuality. She may appear as aesthetic perfection, emotional intensity, seductive lifestyle, embodied fantasy. Social platforms amplify her power, turning attention into currency and mystery into branding. The medium has changed. The psychology has not. 71. How to embody the siren. To play the siren. Elevate presence, never appear ordinary. Master atmosphere, light, sound, pace. Use contrast, innocence, and danger. Withhold possession, always remain slightly out of reach. Perform without apology. The siren does not chase. She attracts. 72. The cost of the siren archetype. The siren commands attention, but rarely peace. Her life becomes intense, unstable, consuming. Those drawn to her often want escape, not commitment. Once the illusion fades, they move on. The siren must accept this cost or risk collapse. Closing of section IX. The siren seduces not by argument, but by experience. She does not promise a future. She offers a moment so vivid it feels worth any price. That is her power. That is her danger. In the next section, we meet a very different seducer. One who conquers not through escape, but through obsessive desire and emotional intensity. If you have read this far, something has already changed. You no longer see attraction as accidental. You no longer believe influence is random. You no longer mistake desire for honesty. What once felt mysterious now feels structured. What once felt magical now reveals its mechanics. This is the cost of understanding. Seduction loses its innocence once you see how it works, but it gains clarity. The final truth about seduction. Seduction is not about sex. It is not about romance. It is not even about people. It is about power over perception. Who shapes meaning? Who controls emotion? Who sets the rhythm of closeness and distance? And above all, who defines reality in moments when logic is weakest? This is why seduction appears everywhere. In politics, in religion, in leadership, in branding, in culture, in love. It is the invisible force behind allegiance and obsession. The illusion you can no longer unsee. Before this book, seduction may have felt like chemistry or luck. Now you recognize the signs. Curiosity engineered. Emotions paced. Absence calculated. Meaning framed. Identity slowly entangled. You will notice it in conversations. In media. In public figures. In yourself. And this awareness creates distance. You can no longer fall blindly, only consciously. Power always demands a price. Here is what no seductive manual tells you. Power isolates. Those who master influence often struggle with trust, intimacy, authenticity, peace. When you can move people emotionally, it becomes difficult to believe anyone loves you without illusion. When you can orchestrate desire, sincerity feels fragile. This is the seducer's paradox. To control emotion is to risk being untouched by it. What this book never promised. This book never promised happiness. It never promised fulfillment. It never promised love. It promised clarity. As explored in works like The Art of Seduction, understanding power does not make you virtuous, it makes you aware. Awareness is neutral. What you do with it is not. You can use this knowledge to protect yourself, manipulate others, inspire loyalty, create beauty, build influence, or destroy trust. The knowledge itself does not choose. You do. The final choice. You now stand on the edge of a quiet divide. On one side, ignorance, emotional chaos, unconscious attraction, being moved without knowing why. On the other, awareness, restraint, deliberate influence, and the burden of seeing too clearly. There is no returning to blindness. Once you understand seduction, you are responsible for how you use it. One last warning. Never forget this. The most dangerous seduction is not the one you perform on others. It is the one you perform on yourself. When you begin to believe your own myth. When power becomes identity. When influence replaces meaning. That is when seduction stops being a tool and becomes a prison. Final words. Seduction is neither good nor evil. It is simply human. It emerges wherever desire exists. And desire exists everywhere. Now you see the architecture. Whether you build with it, defend against it, or walk away from it. That choice is yours. The book ends here. The influence does not.